The rain fell in sheets over the village of Thornhaven, turning the cobblestone streets into rivers of mud and shadow. Ilara pulled her soaked cloak tighter around her shoulders as she pushed through the door of the Hollow Stag Tavern, her heart pounding so hard she feared everyone inside could hear it. She was being hunted. The tavern was crowded despite the late hour, filled with travelers and locals seeking refuge from the storm. Smoke hung thick in the air, mingling with the smell of ale and wet wool. Ilara's eyes darted across the room, searching for somewhere to hide, someone who might help her. That was when she saw him. He sat alone in the darkest corner of the tavern, a tankard untouched before him. Even seated, she could tell he was enormous, broad across the shoulders with arms that strained against his worn traveling cloak. His dark hair fell across his forehead, partially obscuring a face that seemed carved from stone. But it was his stillness that caught her attention. While everyone else in the tavern laughed and argued and moved, this stranger sat perfectly motionless, watching the room with eyes that missed nothing. The tavern door crashed open behind her. Ilara's blood turned to ice as three men entered, their cloaks bearing the crimson serpent of Lord Varen's house. She recognized the leader immediately. Brennan, Lord Varen's most brutal enforcer, the man who had burned her village to ash 3 moons ago. "Spread out," Brennan ordered, his scarred face twisting into a cruel smile. "The witch is here somewhere. Lord Varen wants her alive, but he said nothing about unharmed." Ilara's legs moved before her mind could catch up. She wove through the crowd, keeping her head down, her pulse roaring in her ears. When she reached the dark corner, she slid onto the bench across from the silent stranger. His eyes lifted to meet hers, and Ilara felt the breath leave her body. They were pale gray, the color of winter frost, and they held an intensity that made her feel stripped bare, as if he could see every secret she had ever kept. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Please," Ilara whispered, her voice barely audible above the tavern noise. "Protect me tonight. Just until dawn. I can pay you. I can offer you shelter from the storm." The stranger's gaze shifted past her shoulder to where Brennan and his men were questioning the barkeep. When his eyes returned to hers, something flickered in their depths. Something that almost looked like recognition. He said nothing. He simply nodded once. Ilara released a shaky breath, not quite believing her fortune. "Thank you. I cannot explain everything now, but those men, they work for a lord who wants me dead. If they find me, they will not." His voice was low and rough, as if he had not spoken in days, perhaps weeks. But beneath the roughness was something else. Authority. The quiet certainty of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Brennan had spotted her. "There!" the enforcer snarled, shoving a serving girl aside as he stalked toward their corner. "Did you think you could hide from us, witch?" Ilara pressed herself against the wall, terror clawing at her throat. But the stranger rose from his seat with fluid grace, placing himself between her and the approaching men. "The lady does not wish to be disturbed," he said calmly. Brennan laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Step aside, traveler. This is not your concern." "I have made it my concern." Something in the stranger's tone made Brennan hesitate. Ilara watched the enforcer's eyes narrow as he reassessed the man before him, taking in the breadth of his shoulders, the relaxed readiness of his stance. "There are 3 of us," Brennan said slowly, "and 1 of you." The stranger smiled then, and it was not a pleasant expression. "I like those odds." What happened next would haunt Ilara's dreams for weeks to come. Brennan lunged first, drawing a blade that gleamed in the firelight. The stranger moved like water, like shadow, like something not entirely human. His hand closed around Brennan's wrist with a crack of breaking bone. The enforcer screamed. The second man swung a cudgel at the stranger's head. He ducked beneath it, drove his elbow into the man's stomach, and sent him crashing through a wooden table. The third man ran. The entire fight had lasted perhaps 5 heartbeats. Brennan lay whimpering on the floor, cradling his shattered wrist. The stranger crouched beside him and spoke quietly enough that Alara had to strain to hear. "Return to your master. Tell him the woman is under my protection now. If he sends more men, I will send them back in pieces." For just an instant, as the stranger straightened and turned toward her, Alara saw his eyes catch the firelight. They flashed gold, bright and burning, before returning to their winter gray. She must have imagined it. "Come," he said, offering her his hand. "We should not remain here." Alara took his hand, and the moment their skin touched, she felt something surge through her veins, a warmth that had nothing to do with the tavern's fire, a pull that seemed to tug at something deep in her chest. "What have I done?" she wondered as she followed him into the storm. "What manner of man have I bound myself to?" Alara led the stranger through the winding forest paths she had memorized during her months of hiding. The rain had softened to a steady drizzle, but the darkness beneath the ancient trees was nearly absolute. Twice she stumbled on hidden roots. Both times, his hand caught her elbow before she could fall. How can he see in this darkness? She wondered. Her small cottage appeared through the trees like a ghost, its single window glowing with faint candlelight. Mira had waited up for her. Of course she had. "I should warn you," Alara said, pausing at the door. "My sister is inside. She is only 12 winters old. Please do not frighten her." The stranger inclined his head slightly but said nothing. Alara pushed open the door to find Mira standing in the center of the room, clutching a kitchen knife with trembling hands. When she saw Alara, her small face crumpled with relief. "You came back," Mira breathed, dropping the knife and rushing forward. "I heard riders on the road. I thought—" "I know, little bird." Alara caught her sister in a tight embrace, stroking her auburn hair. "I know, but I am safe. We are both safe." Mira's eyes widened as she spotted the massive figure filling the doorway behind Alara. "Who is that?" Alara turned. In the warm candlelight, she could see the stranger more clearly now. His features were sharp and angular, almost regal in their structure. A thin scar traced from his left temple to his jaw. And despite his rough traveling clothes, there was something in his bearing that seemed entirely out of place in her humble cottage. "He helped me escape Lord Varen's men," Alara explained. "I offered him shelter for the night." Mira studied the stranger with the fearless curiosity of childhood. "What is your name?" The stranger held the girl's gaze for a long moment. "Kale," he said finally. "Kale," Mira repeated, testing the word. "That is a northern name. Are you from the Highland Territories?" Something flickered across Kale's face, there and gone too quickly to identify. "I am from many places," he said. Alara busied herself stoking the fire, trying to ignore the way her skin still tingled from where he had touched her. She was exhausted, terrified, and harboring a mysterious stranger who had just broken a man's wrist without breaking a sweat. She should have been focused on survival. Instead, she could not stop thinking about the way his eyes had flashed gold. "You should eat something," she said over her shoulder. "Mira, fetch bread and cheese from the cellar." Once her sister had disappeared down the trapdoor, Alara turned to face Kale directly. "What you did at the tavern, how did you move like that?" "Training," he replied. "No training teaches a man to move that fast. I have seen soldiers fight. I have seen mercenaries duel. What you did was different." She took a breath. "What you did was not human." The silence stretched between them like a living thing. "You are perceptive," Kale said at last, "and you are evading my question." The faintest hint of a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. It transformed his face, softening the harsh angles, making him look almost approachable. Almost. "Perhaps some questions are better left unanswered," he said, "at least until dawn." Ilara wanted to press further, but Mira was already climbing back through the trapdoor, her arms laden with food. The moment passed. Later, after Mira had fallen asleep by the fire and the cottage had grown quiet, Alara noticed blood seeping through Kale's tunic. "You are wounded," she said sharply. "Why did you not say something?" Kale glanced down at his side as if noticing the injury for the first time. "It is nothing. It is not nothing. Let me see." She reached for him, and his hand caught her wrist with startling speed. For a heartbeat, they stared at each other, his grip firm but not painful. "I do not need your help," he said quietly. "Everyone needs help sometimes." Alara held his gaze without flinching. Even men who can defeat 3 attackers without drawing a weapon. Something shifted in his expression. Slowly, reluctantly, he released her wrist and pulled aside his tunic to reveal the wound beneath. Alara's breath caught in her throat. The gash across his ribs was deep and still bleeding sluggishly. But that was not what made her blood run cold. It was the strange markings surrounding it. Ancient patterns that seemed to move beneath his skin, glowing faintly, as if something not quite human lived beneath the surface. "What are you?" she whispered. Before Kale could answer, a howl split the night. Then another. Then a dozen more, rising from the forest in a chorus that made Ilara's very bones vibrate. Kale rose to his feet, his eyes fixed on the door. They were not alone in these woods. The howling stopped as suddenly as it had begun, leaving a silence that felt heavier than sound. Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs as she stared at Kyle, waiting for an explanation that did not come. "Stay inside," he commanded, moving toward the door. "Do not open this for anyone but me." "Wait." Ilara caught his arm. "You cannot go out there. You are injured, and those wolves. They are not wolves." The words fell between them like stones. Kale pulled free of her grip and slipped through the door before she could stop him. Ilara pressed her face to the window, straining to see through the darkness. But the forest had swallowed him completely. Mira stirred by the fire. "Ilara, what is happening?" "Nothing, little bird. Go back to sleep." But sleep would not come for either of them. They huddled together by the dying fire, listening to the sounds of the night. Distant growls, branches breaking, a scream that might have been human and might have been something else entirely. Then silence. The door burst open, and Kale staggered through. His tunic was torn, his face streaked with blood, and he was dragging something behind him. No. Someone. One of Lord Varen's men, unconscious or dead. "They found us," Kale said, his voice strained. "More are coming." Ilara moved without thinking, helping to barricade the door with furniture while Mira whimpered in the corner. Through the window she could see shadows moving between the trees. Torchlight flickered. "How many?" she asked. "Too many." The first blow against the door sent splinters flying. Ilara pulled Mira behind her, reaching for the kitchen knife her sister had abandoned earlier. It felt pathetically small in her hand. The door exploded inward. Men poured through the opening, blades drawn, their faces twisted with malice. And at their head stood Brennan, his broken wrist bound in a makeshift sling, murder burning in his eyes. "Did you think a single guardian could stop Lord Varen's will?" Brennan snarled. "Kill the stranger. Take the witch alive." Kale moved. Ilara had thought him fast before. She had been wrong. What he became now was something beyond speed, beyond human capability. His movements blurred as he tore through the attackers like a scythe through wheat. Bones shattered. Men screamed. And through it all, Kale's eyes blazed with that impossible golden light. But there were too many of them. Ilara saw the blade too late. A soldier had circled behind Kyle, and his sword, gleaming with an unnatural silver sheen, plunged into the stranger's back. Kale roared. It was not a human sound. It shook the walls of the cottage, made the fire gutter in the hearth. When he spun to face his attacker, his face had changed. His features were sharper, more angular, and his teeth were too long, too sharp. He killed the soldier with a single blow, but the damage was done. The silver blade had found its mark, and Kyle was falling. "Retreat!" Brennan screamed, backing toward the shattered door. "The beast is wounded. Varn's poison will do the rest." The surviving men fled into the night, leaving their dead behind. Ilara barely noticed. She was already on her knees beside Kale, pressing her hands to the wound that wept silver-black blood. "No," she breathed. "No, no, no. Stay with me. Kale, stay with me." His hand found hers, gripping weakly. When he spoke, his voice was a ragged whisper. "You should not have helped me. Now he knows what you are to me. What I am to you." Ilara shook her head desperately. "I do not understand. Please, tell me how to help you." Kale's golden eyes searched her face with an intensity that stole her breath. "Mo Kriya," he murmured in a language she did not recognize. "My heart." Then his hand was on the back of her neck, pulling her down toward him. Ilara thought he meant to kiss her. Instead, his lips found the curve where her neck met her shoulder, and she felt his breath hot against her skin. "Forgive me," he whispered. His teeth sank into her flesh. Pain exploded through Ilara's body. She tried to scream, but no sound emerged. Fire raced through her veins, burning away everything she thought she knew about herself. She could feel him inside her now. Not just his teeth in her skin, but his presence in her mind, his emotions flooding through her like a river breaking through a dam. Anguish, longing, a love so vast it terrified her. When he finally released her, Ilara collapsed beside him, her vision swimming, her entire body trembling with sensations she could not name. Through the haze of pain and confusion, she heard Mira screaming her name. Then darkness claimed them both. Ilara woke to sunlight streaming through the shattered remains of her cottage door. Every muscle in her body ached, and her head throbbed with the aftermath of whatever had happened last night. The bite. Her hand flew to her neck, expecting torn flesh and crusted blood. Instead, she found smooth skin with only the faintest raised marks. Marks that seemed to pulse with warmth when she touched them. How is this possible? She wondered. It should be a fresh wound. Mira's face appeared above her, pale and streaked with dried tears. "Ilara, can you hear me? Please say something." "I am here, little bird." Ilara sat up slowly, wincing. "I am all right." "You are not all right." Mira's voice trembled. "You collapsed. You were burning with fever all night. And him." She pointed toward the hearth. Ilara turned and felt her heart clench. Kale lay motionless on the floor, his skin gray and sheened with sweat. The wound on his back had turned black, and silver-dark veins had spread across his entire torso, creeping up his neck like frost on glass. "He is dying," Mira whispered. "I tried to help him, but I did not know what to do. The wound, it is not natural. Nothing I did made any difference." Ilara crawled to his side, pressing her ear to his chest. His heartbeat was there, but faint, growing weaker with each passing moment. The poison was killing him, eating him from the inside out. "There has to be something." Ilara's voice cracked. "There has to be a way." Mira hesitated. "There is one thing. The gift grandmother taught you. The one you swore never to use." Ilara closed her eyes. Their grandmother had been burned as a witch when Ilara was just 15 winters old. Before she died, she had passed her knowledge to Ilara, teaching her to sense the energy that flowed through all living things, but that was only the surface of their family's power. Beneath the sensing lay something deeper. The ability to manipulate that energy, to heal or harm with nothing but intention. "If anyone sees me use it, we will die just as grandmother did," Ilara said. "If you do not use it, he will die." Mira replied quietly. And somehow, I think his death would hurt you more than you understand. She was right. Even now, lying unconscious and dying, Kale's presence pulled at something deep in Alara's chest. She could feel him there, like a second heartbeat. Faint but undeniable. Whatever he had done when he bit her, it had bound them together in ways she could not explain. "Watch the door," Ilara commanded. "Warn me if anyone approaches." She placed her hands on Kale's chest and closed her eyes. Then she reached inside herself, to the place where her grandmother's gift lay sleeping, and she woke it up. Golden light spilled from her palms. The moment her power touched the poison in Kale's veins, Ilara gasped. It was alive, malevolent. It fought against her like a cornered animal, clawing at her energy with vicious intent. But beneath the darkness, she sensed something else. A wild, ancient force that resonated with her own power in ways that should have been impossible. His true nature, she realized with sudden clarity. He is like me, different, but the same. Something more than human. She pushed deeper, channeling everything she had into driving back the poison. The silver-black veins began to recede, slowly at first, then faster. Kale's breathing steadied. His color improved, but she could not destroy the poison completely. It retreated to the original wound, coiling there like a serpent waiting to strike again. Ilara's strength was failing, her vision blurring at the edges. "Enough!" she gasped, pulling her hands back. "I cannot. It is too strong." She slumped forward, catching herself on Kyle's chest. His eyes fluttered open, clear gray instead of gold, and focused on her face. "You saved me." His voice was barely a whisper. Again. "Not entirely." Ilara managed a weak smile. "The poison still lives. I only pushed it back." Kyle's hand rose to cup her cheek, his touch impossibly gentle for someone who had torn through a dozen men the night before. "Ilara," he said, and the way he spoke her name made her shiver. "You know my name," she breathed. "I know everything now." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "The bond. It goes both ways." Before she could ask what he meant, a pounding came at what remained of the door. Mira screamed, and a voice Ilara had prayed never to hear again echoed through the cottage. "Ilara Thorne." Lord Varen's tone dripped with poisoned honey. "Come out, little witch. It is time we finally met face to face." Lord Varen stood in the doorway like a nightmare given flesh. He was tall and thin, with a face that might have been handsome once, before cruelty had carved its lines into permanent angles. His eyes were the pale green of poison, and they swept across the ruined cottage with obvious satisfaction. "Such destruction," he said mildly, "and all for one insignificant girl." Behind him stood a dozen soldiers, their blades already drawn. Ilara pulled Mira close, positioning herself between her sister and the door. Beside her, Kale struggled to rise, but the poison had left him too weak to stand. "Leave them alone." Ilara's voice shook, but she held Varen's gaze. "They have nothing you want. I am the one you came for." "How noble." Varen stepped into the cottage, his boots crunching on broken glass. "But you are wrong, little witch. I want quite a lot. Your gift, certainly, but also your guardian here." His eyes fixed on Kale with hungry fascination. "Do you know what you have been harboring, girl? Do you have any idea what manner of creature bled on your floor?" Ilara said nothing. "He is a wolf," Varen continued, circling closer. "One of the beasts who rule the northern territories. My poison should have killed him within hours. Yet here he lives, thanks to your forbidden talents." He smiled, and it was the smile of a serpent. "Brennan told me what he witnessed, the golden light that poured from your hands, the way the beast's wounds closed beneath your touch. Your grandmother's bloodline runs true, it seems." Ice spread through Ilara's veins. He knew. He had always known. "Imagine what we could accomplish together," Varen continued. Your healing gift. My alchemical knowledge. We could control them all. I would rather die, Ilara spat. That can be arranged. Varen's expression hardened. But first, you will watch everyone you love suffer for your defiance. He gestured, and 2 soldiers seized Mira, dragging her screaming toward the door. No! Ilara lunged forward, but more soldiers caught her arms, forcing her to her knees. Then Kyle moved. Even poisoned, even dying, he was faster than anything human had a right to be. He caught the nearest soldier by the throat and hurled him through the cottage wall. The second soldier fell with his neck twisted at an impossible angle, but his strength was fading. Ilara could see it in the way his movements slowed, in the trembling of his limbs. The poison was winning. Magnificent! Varen breathed, watching with scholarly interest. Even half dead, you fight like a demon. I wonder how many doses it will take to finally break you. Kale turned to face the Lord, and his eyes blazed gold. When he spoke, his voice resonated with an authority that made the very air tremble. You dare threaten what is mine. Varen's confidence flickered for just an instant. Yours? The witch belongs to no one but herself. She is my mate. Kyle's words fell like thunder. Bound by blood and spirit, and if you touch her again, I will tear your kingdom apart stone by stone. Mate. The word echoed in Ilara's mind, stirring something deep in her chest. The marks on her neck throbbed with sudden warmth. Take them both, Varen commanded, his voice sharp with fear disguised as anger. The beast goes to the dungeon. The witch comes with me. The soldiers surged forward. Kyle fought, but there were too many, and the poison had stolen too much of his strength. They drove him to his knees with silver chains that sizzled against his skin. Ilara. His eyes found hers across the chaos. Do not fear. I will find you. No matter where he takes you, I will come for you. How touching. Varen sneered. He nodded to his men. Separate them. And make sure the beast understands what happens to those who threaten me. The last thing Ilara saw before they dragged her from the cottage was Kale's face, twisted with rage and desperation, his golden eyes burning with a promise that seared itself into her soul. I will find you. She prayed it was true. The days of captivity blurred together like watercolors in rain. Ilara counted the sunrises from her tower window until she lost track somewhere past 20. Mornings blurred into nights of refusing to use her gift for Varen's twisted purposes, enduring his threats and his punishments, and his endless patience. And through it all, she dreamed of Kale. The dreams came without fail. Sometimes she saw him in chains, silver burning his wrists as Varen's alchemists worked their torments. Sometimes she saw him running through moonlit forests, his form shifting between man and wolf in ways that should have terrified her, but instead made her ache with longing. And sometimes, in the darkest hours before dawn, she felt him beside her. He would appear at the edge of her bed, his gray eyes soft with concern, his hand reaching out to cup her cheek. Mokria, he would murmur. My heart. Hold on. I am coming for you. Is this real? She would ask. Are you truly here? In spirit, if not in flesh. The bond connects us across any distance. His thumb would trace the marks on her neck, sending shivers down her spine. Feel me, Ilara. Feel that I am alive, that I am fighting to reach you. She always woke before she could respond, tears spilling down her cheeks, her body burning with fever that had no medical explanation, but the dreams were not the worst of it. Something was changing inside her. Ilara could feel it growing stronger each day. Her senses had sharpened until she could hear the guards' conversations 3 floors below. Her skin had become sensitive to moonlight, tingling whenever the silver glow touched her through the barred window. And there was a restlessness in her blood, a wildness that clawed at her from within, demanding release. She was becoming something other than human. On yet another gray morning, Varin came to her chamber personally. "I have been patient," he said, settling into the chair across from her bed with practiced elegance. "But my patience has limits. The Highland territories are mobilizing, war is coming, and I need your gift to ensure victory." "I will never help you," Alara said flatly. "I thought you might say that." Varen's thin lips curved into a cold smile. "Which is why I have prepared a demonstration." He gestured, and guards entered, dragging a small figure between them. "Mira, no." The word tore from Alara's throat. "You said she was safe. You promised—" "I promised nothing." Varen examined his fingernails with affected boredom. "Your sister has been in my dungeon since the day we arrived. I simply saw no need to mention it until now." Mira's face was bruised, her dress torn, but her eyes, when they met Alara's, held no accusation, only love. "Do not give him anything," Mira said quietly. "Whatever he threatens, do not—" A guard struck her across the face, silencing her. "Here is my offer," Varen continued. "Use your gift to create a weapon against the wolf beasts. Something that enhances my poison, makes it impossible to cure. In exchange, your sister lives." "And if I refuse?" Varen's smile widened. "Then you will watch her die slowly, and I will find other ways to motivate you." Alara's hands trembled with rage and helplessness. She could feel the wild power inside her straining against her control, demanding to be unleashed. But Varen had planned well. Any attack would endanger Mira. "You have until tomorrow morning to decide." Varen rose, straightening his robes. "I suggest you choose wisely." After they left, Alara sank to the floor, her body shaking with silent sobs. Weeks of resistance, of hope, of believing Kale would come. But Kale was not coming. She was alone. That night, the dream came again. But this time, Kale's voice carried an urgency she had never heard before. "Alara, listen to me. I have found you. We are coming at dawn." "It is too late." She could barely speak through her despair. "He has Mira. If I do not do what he asks, she dies. Trust me." His hands cradled her face, his forehead pressing against hers. "When the sun rises, be ready to run. I will handle everything else." "How can you possibly?" "Because I am not just any wolf, Mocreedy." His gray eyes blazed with sudden gold. "I am the Alpha King, and Varen has made the mistake of taking what belongs to me." Alara woke to the sound of howling. The howls rose from every direction, a symphony of fury that shook the very stones of Varen's fortress. Alara pressed herself against the tower window, her heart pounding as she watched chaos erupt in the courtyard below. Wolves, dozens of them, massive and silver-furred, pouring through the shattered gates like a flood. And at their head ran the largest wolf she had ever seen, his coat the color of midnight, his eyes blazing gold in the pre-dawn darkness. Kale. She knew him instantly, recognized him with a certainty that transcended logic. The bond between them sang with his presence, every fiber of her being straining toward him. Then soldiers were running, screaming, dying. The wolves moved with coordinated precision, cutting off escape routes, isolating targets. This was not a random attack. This was a military operation executed with devastating efficiency. Her door exploded inward. Alara spun, expecting guards, expecting Varen, expecting death. Instead, a woman stood in the doorway, tall and fierce with silver hair and eyes that matched Kale's winter gray. "You are Alara," the woman said. It was not a question. "Who are you?" "I am Siren, the king's sister. And we need to move now." She grabbed Alara's wrist and pulled her into the corridor. "Your sister is already being extracted. Kale is dealing with Varen personally." They ran through smoke-filled hallways, past bodies and burning tapestries. Ilara's bare feet slipped in blood, but Siren's grip never faltered. "He was telling the truth," Ilara gasped. "In the dreams. He really is a king. The Alpha King, Seren corrected, ruler of all the Highland packs. When Varin captured him, we feared the worst. When we discovered he had bonded with a human, she broke off, something complicated crossing her face. What? What is wrong with that? Seren did not answer. They burst through a side door into the cold morning air, where horses waited with armed riders. Mira was already there, wrapped in a cloak far too large for her, alive and whole. Ilara! Her sister flung herself forward, and they collided in an embrace that made Ilara's heart crack with relief. You are safe, Ilara breathed. Thank the gods, you are safe. A roar split the air, not a wolf's howl, but something deeper, more primal. Ilara turned to see a dark shape hurtling through the air, crashing through a tower window in an explosion of glass and stone. Two figures tumbled to the courtyard below. One was Varen, his elegant robes torn, his face twisted with terror. The other was Kale in human form, though barely. His features were caught between man and wolf, his teeth elongated, his eyes burning with murderous gold. Call off your beasts! Varen screamed, scrambling backward. I will give you anything. Gold, land, the witch. Take her, just let me live. Kyle stalked forward, his voice resonating with inhuman power. You poisoned me. You caged me. You put your hands on my mate. He seized Varen by the throat, lifting him effortlessly. There is nothing you possess that could buy your life. What happened next was too fast for Ilara to track. One moment, Varen was struggling in Kale's grip. The next, his body lay crumpled on the cobblestones, and Kale stood over him, chest heaving, covered in blood that was not his own. Their eyes met across the courtyard. Ilara felt the bond between them ignite like wildfire. All the dreams, all the phantom touches, all the whispered promises, they paled beside the reality of seeing him alive, victorious, coming for her just as he had sworn. Then his knees buckled. Kale! She was running before she knew she had moved, sliding to her knees beside him as he collapsed. The silver-black veins were back, spreading from the wound that had never fully healed. No. I pushed it back. You were recovering. The fight. Reopened it. His breathing was labored, his skin burning beneath her hands. The blade was coated with concentrated poison. There is no cure. There has to be something. Tears blurred her vision. Tell me how to save you. Seren's voice came from behind her, heavy with grief. There is only one way, but it requires a choice that cannot be unmade. Ilara looked up at the silver-haired woman. What choice? The bite Kale gave you began a transformation, Seren explained. Your human body is fighting it, which is why you have been ill. If you accept the change fully, embrace your wolf spirit, the bond between you will strengthen enough to purge the poison from his blood through your connection. Then I will do it, Ilara said immediately. You do not understand. Seren's eyes were hard. Most humans die during the transformation, and even if you survive, you will never be fully human again. You will be one of us, a wolf, an outcast from your own kind. Ilara looked down at Kale, at the man who had protected her without knowing her, who had called her his heart, who had waged war against a lord to save her, and her sister. He is my kind, she said quietly. He has been since the moment he bit me. Kale's hand found hers, squeezing weakly. Ilara, you do not have to. I would never ask. You are not asking. She leaned down to press her forehead against his. I am choosing. Seren knelt beside them, her expression softening. Then we must return to the Highland territories immediately. The transformation must happen on sacred ground, under the full moon, or you will both die. How long do we have? Ilara asked. Seren looked toward the horizon, where the first rays of sunlight were painting the sky gold and crimson. 3 days, she said grimly, and it is a 2-day journey, even at full speed. Alara tightened her grip on Kale's hand, feeling his pulse flutter beneath her fingers. 3 days to reach safety. 3 days to undergo a transformation that would likely kill her. But as she met his golden eyes and felt the bond between them pulse with desperate hope, she knew there was no other choice. Whatever she had to become, whatever she had to sacrifice, she would not let him die. Not when she had only just found him. The journey to the Highland territories nearly killed them both. What should have taken 2 days stretched into 3, as Kale's condition worsened. Alara rode with his unconscious body cradled against her chest, feeling his life force ebb with every mile. The silver-black poison had spread to his neck now, creeping toward his heart with relentless hunger. Twice she had to use her gift to push it back, draining herself dangerously to buy him a few more hours. "You cannot keep doing this," Seren warned on the second night. "You are weakening yourself before the transformation. If you have nothing left to give when the time comes, then I will die having tried." Alara's voice was hollow with exhaustion. "I will not watch him fade, while I do nothing." They reached the sanctuary of First Blood at sunset on the third day. Ancient stones rose from the earth in a perfect circle, their surfaces carved with symbols that seemed to writhe in the fading light. The air itself felt different here, thick with power that made Alara's skin prickle, and the marks on her neck burn with recognition. "This is where our kind was born," Seren explained as they carried Kale to the altar at the circle's center. "Thousands of years ago, in this very place, the boundary between human and wolf is thinnest here. Wolves emerged from the forest, dozens of them, forming a ring around the stones. As they approached, their forms shimmered and shifted, becoming men and women with silver hair and ancient eyes. The pack had gathered to witness their king's fate. An elderly woman stepped forward, her face mapped with wrinkles but her gaze sharp as flint. "I am Aelith, keeper of the old ways. You are the human who would attempt the transformation?" "I am," Alara said. Aelith studied her for a long moment. "The ritual is simple. You must stop fighting what you are becoming and surrender to the wolf spirit within you. But the surrender must be complete. Any resistance, any hesitation, and the transformation will tear you apart." "I understand. Do you?" Aelith's eyes narrowed. "Your kind clings to humanity like a drowning man clings to driftwood. The wolf demands everything. Your fears, your doubts, your very identity. Can you truly let go of who you were to become what you must be?" Alara looked at Kale lying motionless on the altar, his breathing so shallow she could barely see his chest rise. The bond between them pulsed weakly, a candle flame guttering in the wind. "For him," she said quietly, "I can do anything." The ritual began as the full moon rose over the mountains. Alara knelt beside the altar, her hands pressed to Kale's chest, feeling his fading heartbeat beneath her palms. The pack circled around them, their voices rising in a chant that seemed to vibrate through her very bones. "Now," Aelith commanded, "release your hold on your human self. Let the wolf rise." Alara closed her eyes and reached for the wildness that had been building inside her since the night Kale bit her. It was there, waiting, a silver flame that burned at the core of her being. She let go. Pain crashed through her like a tidal wave. Her bones cracked and reformed. Her muscles tore and rebuilt themselves. Every cell in her body screamed in agony as it was unmade and remade into something new. But beneath the pain, there was something else. Power. Wild, primal, magnificent power flowing into her from the sacred ground, from the watching pack, from the bond that connected her to Kale's very soul. She could feel him now, feel his spirit brushing against hers as the transformation progressed. He was so weak, barely clinging to life, but his love reached for her through the darkness. "Mo Creve, my heart, you came for me." "Always," she answered. "I will always come for you." The transformation reached its peak. Her spine arched, her vision fractured into 1,000 shards of moonlight. She could feel herself dissolving, her human identity crumbling away like sand before a wave. And then everything went wrong. The pain became too much. Ilara felt her consciousness fragmenting, her grip on existence slipping. She was dying. The human part of her was dying, and the wolf was not strong enough to take its place. No, no, not when they were so close. Not when she could feel Kale's soul waiting for her on the other side. Fight, child. Eilith's voice echoed from somewhere far away. You must fight, or you will both be lost. But Ilara had nothing left to fight with. Her strength was gone, her will exhausted. She was falling into darkness, and there was no one to catch her. Then she heard Mira's voice. Ilara, Ilara, please. I cannot lose you too. Please come back. Her sister, her little bird. The reason she had survived everything Varin had done to her. Something sparked in the darkness of Ilara's mind. Not power, but love. Love for Mira, for the life they had built together, for the future they deserved. And love for Kale, the stranger who had become her everything. She grabbed hold of that love and let it pull her back from the abyss, the transformation completed in a blaze of golden light. When Ilara opened her eyes, she saw the world as she had never seen it before. Colors were sharper, sounds clearer, scents painting the air with stories she could read like words on a page. She looked down at her hands and saw fur, silver white and gleaming in the moonlight. She was a wolf. The pack erupted in howls of celebration, but Ilara had no time for ceremonies. She shifted back to human form with instinctive ease and turned to the altar where Kale lay. He was not breathing. No. The word tore from her throat as she scrambled onto the altar beside him. No, you cannot leave me. Not now. Not after everything. She reached for the bond between them, but there was nothing. Only silence where his presence should have been. The poison reached his heart, Aelith said quietly. He faded moments after you lost consciousness. Then bring him back. Ilara's voice cracked with desperation. There must be a way. Please. Aelith shook her head sadly. He is gone, child. Even an Alpha King cannot return from death. Gone. The word did not make sense. How could he be gone when she could still feel the marks he had left on her neck? How could he be gone when her entire being screamed that he was her mate? Her other half? Her home? She pressed her forehead to his chest, tears streaming down her face. You promised, she whispered. You promised you would find me. You promised we would be together. You cannot break your promise, Kale. Not to me. The silence stretched on. The pack began to withdraw, their heads bowed in grief for their fallen king. And then Ilara felt it. A flicker. Faint as a candle in a hurricane, but real. The bond between them was not gone. It was there, buried beneath the poison, waiting for something to reignite it. He is still fighting, she breathed. He is still there. She did not think. She did not plan. She simply acted on instinct older than thought. Ilara pulled Kale's body up, tilting his head to expose the curve of his neck, the same spot where he had bitten her all those weeks ago, the place where mates claimed each other for eternity. Come back to me, she growled, and she sank her teeth into his flesh. Power exploded through the bond like lightning through a wire. Ilara felt her life force surge into Kale, burning away the poison that had wrapped around his heart. She felt his soul grab hold of hers with desperate strength. She felt him live. Kale's body arched beneath her. A sound emerged from his throat that was half human scream, half wolf howl. His hands found her waist, gripping hard enough to bruise, as their minds crashed together in a union that transcended physical touch. She felt everything he felt, his terror at losing her, his grief when he thought she had died, his wild, overwhelming joy at feeling her alive, transformed, claiming him as her own. Mine, Her wolf spirit snarled. Yours, his answered. Always and forever, yours. When Alara finally released him, she was trembling with exhaustion and emotion. Kale's eyes opened. Clear gray shot through with gold and fixed on her face with an expression of pure wonder. You did it, he breathed. You survived the transformation. And you survived the poison. Alara laughed through her tears. We are terrible at dying, it seems. His hand rose to cup her cheek, his thumb tracing the path of her tears. I felt you slipping away. I tried to follow. But something held me here. Something that refused to let me go. That was my stubbornness, Alara said. I was not finished arguing with you yet. Kale laughed then, a real laugh that made his whole face transform with joy. He pulled her down against his chest, wrapping his arms around her as if he would never let go. My mate, he murmured against her hair, my queen, my impossible, stubborn, magnificent queen. Around them, the pack raised their voices in a howl of celebration. Their alpha king lived, and the human woman who had saved him had become something more. Something that belonged to their world now. Seren stepped forward, her eyes bright with unshed tears. The bond is complete. The claiming is witnessed. By the laws of our kind, you are now bound for eternity. An eternity with you. Kyle pressed his forehead against Alara's. Is that something you can bear? Alara thought of everything she had lost. Her cottage, her place in the human world, the life she had once thought she wanted. Then she thought of everything she had gained. Kyle. The pack. A power that sang through her veins like starlight. A future that stretched before her full of possibility. It is not something I can bear, she said softly. It is everything I ever wanted without knowing I wanted it. Kale kissed her then, beneath the full moon, surrounded by the pack that had become her family. And as the wolves howled their blessing to the night sky, Alara knew with absolute certainty that she had finally found where she belonged. Not in the world of humans who feared what they could not understand, but here, in the arms of her Alpha King, in the heart of the wild. She was home at last. Thank you so much for listening. I truly hope you enjoyed the story. And a big thank you to everyone who is following. Your support truly means the world to me.